Great Writers Media.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're diving into Gunky's adventures in the land of must-believe, a heartwarming and imaginative journey crafted by Jim Reuther. From the touching Afterlife love letter and wish to whimsical and surprising tales, Jim's stories are a testament to love, life, and creativity. Get ready to explore a world where every letter of the alphabet holds a new adventure. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Great Writers Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below the interview. Jim, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here, and I appreciate the kind words that you said about that. It was very, very well spoken. I'm humbled.
Well, I appreciate your time, sir. Great to have you on the show. It's a terrific book. Let's start out with a question about Gunky, who he is and how he became your storytelling alter ego.
Well, Gunky was the childhood nickname that my mother gave me when I was very young. And if I may just hold up a picture, this is a picture of me as a young child. And that's Gunky. And people said, "Is that you?" And I said, "Yes, that's me without the goatee." So
You look like the Gerber baby there. That's a great picture.
they actually entered that into a baby food contest, and they won a local one, and so that's how it was fed. So I was earning a living even at a young age. It's very
Oh,
funny.
mom put you to work at a young age, which is
We
great.
were very poor growing up, as I tell in the story. But Jim Reuther, aka Gunky, essentially can be characterized in three S's. The first one is science. I'm a PhD molecular spectroscopist, chemical physicist from Penn State, and that's what I would do in my career. I've studied everything from soothing candle flames to fireballs from roadside bombs in different war theaters that were meant to kill and burn innocent people. My other S is I'm a former professional soccer referee. I did that for relaxation from my day job. That was very stressful. I'm retired from that, and I'm a referee liaison officer, which means I handle them at different stadiums. So that's how I'm still doing the sports part. And the third adventure in Gunky's life is now storytelling. And that's the most recent one. And that was inspired by my late wife, who in her last days was writing a notebook and things. And she wrote me a notebook on how to get along without me. And it was a how-to book on how to do things like really important things like laundry, shopping, things that, she thought I was incapable of doing. She was quite right. But it was very, very loving book. But as I opened up the book after she passed away, I found a letter, and it was entitled Afterlife Love Letter and Wish. And in that letter, she talked about our last days and told me things that she never really expressed as well as she thought she should. But in that letter, she asked me to share my stories, especially my poetry, with the world. So I'm doing that for her. That was the motivation. The inspiration was from that letter, really to collect it. The first story that I wrote was my love letter back to her. And that's called Inspirational Inferno. And it's about candles, and it's about why candles are lit. So those are the three S's. You can characterize me. People think that I'm a hardcore scientist and a referee, so that I might have a hard side to me. My mother inspired me to write poetry early on when I was starting my career. She thought I was too hard of a man and wanted me to get in touch with things that I loved that were nicer, quieter, more peaceful. And I wrote poems about trees. I did many walks in the wood as a growing up in upstate New York. So I wrote Trees for All Seasons to her. So that's the inspiration. And then taking a step back further, my science career was inspired by my grandmother, who was raised on a farm, no running water or electricity, homeschooled. And when she came into a bit of money by selling a parcel of her farm to make an airport, she went and vacationed in Florida and got enamored in the space program. And she sent clippings and postcards back. So women in my life have been very important. Of course, my father was firm but fair and just a great guy. And I will tell stories about how he played practical jokes on me. But Thank you for asking. That's sort of the inspiration and motivation behind Gunky.
Yeah. Well, you unpacked a lot there. I'm still, awestruck by your wife's letters to you, writing the book, or writing the passages on how to get along without me when I'm gone is just absolutely heartbreaking. And it must have been such a find for you, such a gem, such a treasure to discover after she had gone, the love letter that she had written for you.
I was I read it on a Friday afternoon, and I can remember the next thing I would remember would be early Saturday morning. I just took me on a flashback of, 36 years of, having fun together. I have two great kids, great lives and everything. And now she's gone.
Yeah.
But the message was she's never going to be gone.
Yeah.
And she after she wrote the notebook, the title said, how to get along without me after I'm gone. And my heart's crushing and the tears are flowing. And I look at the bottom line and it says, for a dummy. It's how she was a Long Island, born in Long Island, 6 older brothers. She was street smart, but she could always get the last word. She zinged me one more time. I was, crushed, sorrowful, and I had to laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a
That's
beautiful
that's
life.
a beautiful story. You got me laughing, got me crying. It's very, very emotional, very, very tough. If I have one wish in this life is that I pass before my wife. I mean, it's such a tough thing to go on without them.
Well, one of the things that happened to her family is she lost a younger brother he was run over by a drunk driver and killed and crossing the street. And that the loss of that, the mother losing one of her children, I witnessed that family, and then I would witness, Teresa passing away,
Mm.
and I could see the shock on a family. But it's one of those things that's hard to explain. You she wanted to she said once to me, she quoted an Italian philosopher who said, "You're dead a long time." And you have to be in every moment. You have to enjoy everything, whatever life throws at you, good, bad, or indifferent. And one of the reasons why that I wrote the book, and I think you may realize this, is that I've seen the good, and
Mm.
it's a beautiful family, loving relationship, friends at work and play. I've seen the bad, their passing, and all the life's lemons that have been thrown at me and the like. I have a story called "Jinx Coming 3?" And it'll talk about some of the setbacks that I had in my career.
Mm.
But I also saw the ugly, and that is as a working explosives engineer, I got to see the raw horror of warfare, and that we don't want to go there. And it's really the book is inspired to check up, take a moment uh, to realize just how wonderful we do have it in many ways. Count your blessings, and it's this is not new. Today's world is crazy. I mean, it's crazier. I grew up in the Vietnam War and different over the last 74 of my years. I thought I've seen it all, but I've not seen it all. I think the world needs an escape to a kinder, gentler, inspirational place where and I hope to find that in Gunky's world in the stories that I write.
Absolutely. I love the fact that The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is a horrible film, has become so ubiquitous in our culture that it's a perfect reference point to use the title over and over again. But that's one of Clint Eastwood's many, many contributions to our lives, right?
I know. I will cite Clint. Give him credit.
Exactly. Exactly. And George W. Bush for a kinder, gentler world too. Yeah.
Right. As an author, as a scientist, I used equations and technical jargon, and I was very familiar with that. The greatest challenge of writing the book and poetry is you have to use words. And I had trouble finding them, but then they're emotional. That's the connection that you're trying to make. It's an emotional level. Science is clinical. It's, the laws of chemistry, physics, thermodynamics, and that. But in literature, you can be free. I haven't misspoken yet, but we said the word kinder a couple of times. In my speech, sometimes I say kindler and gentler world. There is no such word as kindler, but I'm an
Right.
author. It shall be a word that Gunky speaks. So we need to be kindler and gentler because there's a little alliteration in there.
That happens to the best of us. Don't worry. It'll happen to me now that you brought that up for sure. I'll say kindler and gentler or genter. You never know. Um, in the land of must believe, what do you mean by that?
I'm going to tell stories, and the framework of the book is there's 26 short stories altogether. The first one being the lead story by my late wife, Teresa, with an H. She always used to say that. And I wanted to share with the world that story because it was very powerful. I felt selfish. I shared it with my family. They said, the people have to see that. They wanted to see my letter back. I then wanted to backfill the rest of the alphabets only because I'm a science nerd. Uh, so it's an anthology of short stories, alphabetical. They begin with a provocative title, and I'm going to purposely try to phrase the title to pull you in. Some of the titles are Close Encounters of the Hooters kind. The word Hooters is going to raise the intent of people. But if, as I said, I love nature, so maybe you're going to get a hint about where we're going with this. I talk
We'll be
about
talking
naughty
about
boots.
owls and not the girls in short shorts, perhaps, right?
That's right. Yeah, but where does your mind go? I think
Oh, immediately to girls in tank tops and orange short shorts.
so. I am playing. So at those little catches, Naughty Boots is a story about my daughter being a soloist at a distinguished wind ensemble at Denison University, the symphony, and playing her solo with her muddy rugby boots on underneath her long flowing gown. Taming of the Screw is a story about I have a rusty screw that I found in a seat, and a close friend almost sat on it, and it would have injured him, and they claims he saved his life, and I called it a weapon of ass destruction. To be a
That's
pun on where
great.
I like to play with words. Sometimes I do get in trouble with not saying them exactly correct,
Right.
but I use that as a prop. I use that to get pictured with Mr. Screw,
Mhm.
and I got pictures of all my friends that way who didn't want to be photographed. I've had pictures from all around the world with that screw. It's a catch thing. It's my personal collection. So someday maybe I can get a picture with you with the screw
Holding
also,
the screw as well. Yeah,
holding
for
the
sure.
screw, right?
Yep.
And then the last story is a sort of a mystery thing. It's a conspiracy thing. It's called Ziggity Zaggity Blinkety Blink. And I leave you suspended in it. And that was for the next book. And the next book is called Gunky's Adventures in the Land of Bright Whispers.
Mm.
So I like to pull you in with the words, and then I hope to entertain you with the stories. The stories also have a short poem that you may not understand or appreciate. Some of them are different. I have my favorites, and there's some that are not as favorite, but you'll understand them after you read the story and appreciate it. I'll take you on an adventure, and I will purposely lead you down a path, but I'm taking you down a path, and at the end, I'm going to misdirect the path. I'm going to leave you with something else. You will not expect where you wind up from the beginning. And then at the end of every story, I have a wondering, and that is Gunky's going to wonder about the story, what happened, and just wonder out loud about what the options were. And of course, now that you know that there's, death and life and joy, it just asks you, I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm just saying that you have options and you should consider what options that you have when you make decisions. You can put yourself in a peaceful, more tranquil, positive world by emotionally being emotionally strong through tragedy, and enjoying the fun times as best you can.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love the fact that you misdirect there. I think it makes the work interesting and compelling for sure. Tell us more about the first poem you ever wrote that you featured in this book.
The first poem that I wrote was called Inspirational Inferno. If you wouldn't mind, I could recite it.
Sure, that'd be
Now,
great.
I'm a PhD chemical physicist, so I've studied how flames fly. It's called flame dynamics, and I know the mathematics and the chemistry and the physics. But flames are alive. Once you start them, they're living things, the living a force of nature, and then they have behavior. They can smile. They do wonderful things. When you see a candle, you will get different emotions coming out of it. The emotion that I wanted to get out of it was why they're lit. Eternal is our curiosity of your spiritual luminosity. You shine and sparkle. Oh, what a thrill! As colorful and lively as a daffodil. You frolic and fray, shimmer and sway, mysterious, transient, while trying to say that with each wisp of bright golden blaze, hope will flash from gloom's dark haze. Your beam makes it clear when despair is near and melancholy darkens your head. Watch and believe, and your mind will relieve with joy and illumination instead. That's why
Wonderful.
candles are lit.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's great. That's great. I love it. I love the rhythm, or the meters of the poem, and the wordage, the verbiage. I think it's just terrific. What's your
Thank you.
favorite? What's your favorite? I imagine, the afterlife love letter is your favorite, but aside from that deeply emotional letter, what other aspect of the book or part of the book or work in this book is your favorite?
Well, I mentioned several S's. People said it was serious. I used to introduce myself when I used to give lectures, instructional classes to referees. They would introduce me as the serious one, but I like to be silly. And one of the stories that I have that's of silly nature is I thought that Bigfoot has too many TV programs and just too much publicity. So we need a new monster. We need a new critter, but it has to be a benevolent critter. So I have a short story about MK Zany, and it's a new creature. He's a monkey cat, and he just does wonderful things behind the doors, and just to do silly things. And when people read that, they said, "You wrote this?" It's like I'm trying to get in touch with my less than serious side. It's a diversion. It's a distraction. And then, of course, I get kidded that someday when I retire eventually, that I'll be sitting along the roadside selling T-shirts and mugs with the MK Monkey Cat logos on them. But that was a relief. It was a relief to get the emotions out, to do something silly, do something that you normally wouldn't do. My writings were therapeutic, and that's really what I want to tell everybody. There's you can get through these struggles if you write down some of these and you write them out, and then try to find some way to divert your mind from it. You don't want to get locked in to the deep sadness. You want to break out. My wife said in her letters that you need to learn how to love, and live again. And she wanted me to find another person to be a companion with. We met the night we met. It's in the book. Is that I did not want to go to the sorority fraternity party. I was going to study for my physics test. I was almost physically dragged out of my fraternity room with the Brotherhood because they were the best sorority in campus, and there's going to be free food and beer and co-eds. And we went, and everybody, all the brothers are standing around, drinking the beer, eating the food, and just looking out at the girls dancing among themselves. I spotted, I said, this is silly. We need to dance with young ladies because they are, feeding us and letting us to drink their beer. And I picked out a tall blonde girl in the middle of the thing. And I said, I'm going to go out and dance with her. And my roommate, Tom, would hear this, and as a practical joke, would walk around the other way. So we went into the middle of the floor, and we both tapped at the same time. Now, what's fate? Cindy will turn to Tom. And now I'm standing there all alone. Everybody saw this. And I looked down and I saw this 5'2", long, brown haired young lady. And I looked at her and I said, "You'll do." And she put her hands on her hips and said, "Well, you'll do too." It was love at first insult. And we proceeded, and she said, "Well, what is your major?" I said, "Engineering." She said, "I don't like engineers." "What is your favorite sport?" "Soccer." "I don't like soccer." Well, her family played soccer. Her father was an engineer. So that's how we got along. We always kidded that way. I mean, and then we always used to discuss problems, argue, never fight. And then we would both look at each other and laugh, and we'd say we're both wrong, and we'd get the right solution. Now, it's interesting to note so that's how we met. In her letter, she said, "Someday I want you to find someone else to whom you'll say you'll do." She didn't want me to be alone, which is the case.
Yeah.
Now, you should note that Tom is still married to Cindy. the 5 roommates that I took a picture of that night, the 6 of them, they're all married. And the other ironic thing is all of them are from the South Shore, Long Island, and all of them have had breast cancer. But so they're now surviving. So those are the things. And the point, the thing that I think is unusual about me is I try to pull out as much information out of everything in my life and remember it, so I can remember all of these things. And document them. I've never kept a diary. It's all in my head, but writing it down now I can read it and I can share it with people and my family. But thank you for that question.
Absolutely. The stories in this book, were they stories you had written over a number of years, stories you wrote specifically for this book, stories you wrote before your wife's passing in part? Tell us a little bit about how these stories all came together.
They were all in my head. I used to tell them to the kids. And it was documenting it. So what I did is I started to write them and then I separated them. They're about bizarre happenings. I've had a few bizarre happenings in my life that only a scientist could have. I tell the story about how I had my career. In high school, I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. This was in 1967. I took the written exam and I scored top in the state of New York. I took the medical exam, the physical exam, and ran around and climbed a rope, all the things that you need to do to be an Air Force pilot. Not. And then finally, I took the medical exam, and they told me that I was disqualified because I wore glasses. And they could do that back then. This is 1967. They offered me an appointment to West Point or Annapolis. My father was an Army World War II veteran, Philippine jungles with the Japanese in his bulldozer. And he said, you really don't want it. You want to think about this. And he said, you can't go to the Naval Academy because you don't know how to swim. I had to take a course to graduate college in the SUNY system in New York. You had to take a course in swimming. So everything was going fine. So I hadn't applied to any schools. But then a year later, the sponsor that I had, the Senate sponsor from New York, would be assassinated in Los Angeles by Sirhan Sirhan. It was the state senator from New York, Robert F. Kennedy. And my father's classic words is, I don't think you're going anywhere now. So I applied to school. I went to Oneonta University in New York. It was a 5-year program, 3 years in chemistry, 2 years in chemical engineering at New York University. I get a degree in chemistry, chemical engineering in 5 years. When I was to transfer, NYU went bankrupt because that was when New York City was struggling financially. So that's my career. People said, how did you get to be where you are? Well, you just have to have, your sponsor to your service academy assassinated and a major city go bankrupt. Other than that, it's all good. Somebody's looking out for me. We all know who that is.
Amazing how the planets align in certain ways sometimes, and what you least expect to happen happens, and what you expect to happen doesn't, yet it all works out for the right, for the good at the end.
And that's where I get the line, you must believe. Because it all turns out okay.
Yeah.
In the end. I mean, now, was it easy? No.
Right.
Were there lots of things, but in the end, you make the most of what you can do. And that's all I'm saying is in your life, you have if you have a decision to make that's yours, think about it really carefully, because a lot of things are out of your control. They're beyond your control. That's a quote from Dangerous Liaisons, it's beyond my control. So that's how I live. So I want to be inspirational. I want to talk about true love. I want to, the book has mysteries in it that I will take you on a path. And one of them, no one has figured out yet, because I've double-crossed you, triple-crossed you. And I worked for the National Security Division. We used to, in counterintelligence, we used to say, we'll triple-cross that bridge when we come to it. I talk about natures and trees. So they were putting them all together. The new monster, nostalgia. I talk about nostalgia, and that's to relate to people. That's where the connection's going to be. And they're going to see that how things turned out. I want to give them upbeat. I want to say that there's people who are struggling the same as you are, and you need some support. I have mentored several husbands and wives who lost their spouses, and to talk them through it. And the message that I give is every emotion that you feel is real, and you just have to build on it. You need to move on. I talk about odd personalities. There's that are funny. That's one of my other favorite stories. A dear friend, Bob, and he only used to say 2, 3, or 4 words whenever he talked to anybody. Anybody would only talk to me. Practical jokes. My father was a practical jokester. Would play them on me. Would teach me how to do that. I talk about them. I talk about resiliency, and that's the key. Is you got to be emotionally tough. You have one choice, and that is to move on and find the best that you have that's left over. There are leftovers in all tragedies. We talked about COVID having only virtual meetings, 2-dimensional, but people are using it to their advantage to work from home. So it's a different way. We're going to make the proverbial lemonade from lemons. I do like to have surprise endings in the stories. Again, the misdirection, and I want you to cry tears both from sadness and joy with me, because that's really the message here. Is I want to say that we're all in this wonderful world together, and that we can all make it through in a positive way, especially today's world. I always say today's world. I've been saying that every day of my life. Sorry.
It seems like it's changing every moment, and every day of this world seems a little bit different and brings new, unexpected things and things you never imagined before, which is both the wonder and the detriment of life, I guess you would say. Let me ask you this: have you envisioned Gunky's World as a film?
I never did. I never thought of that. Then when I got an idea for it, I made the decision. Wow, is it good enough to do that? That lack of confidence, and it's like the book was shared and people read it, people would say, "What do you think about a movie?" That's the decision. That's the option I had. First of all, I had to realize that was an option. Again, remember, I'm a scientist. I was a bit handicapped about all of the film world and the storytelling and the like. But I thought about it and I said, well, why not? I mean, is it good enough? And it has been. Great writers has picked it up. They wrote a treatment for the book, how to convert and I just said, what's a treatment? For a bad back or sore legs. I had no idea. I'm Googling it on my thing and it's telling me, it's for headaches or migraines. It's how do you convert the book into a movie? And then their writers did the treatment. Remarkable piece of work. Remarkable. I mean, synthesized they got storylines out of 26 separate stories. They got themes. They've got parallel themes. They've got parallel themes that go through the book. They have parallel themes or themes that start out that crisscross, especially about the one of my mother. I probably shouldn't give you the what do they call them in the movie, the spoilers.
Right.
But they have the interactions, and they wrote what was most impressive is I'm telling stories about taking my children out to see shooting stars, stargazing, meteor showers, and the like. And in the story, and then in the movie, I'm going to be talking to my grandson about taking his aunt and uncle out to see this. And the walls disappear, and the sky opens up, and we're outside. And it was then that I realized that it's a screenplay. Simple things like that. I never exposed to it. I studied a lot in my life and did a lot of science. So I'm learning. I've seen very few films, although the ones I've seen I have memorized. I try to be selective. That people said, well, what kind of film would this be like? I have little or no idea. I mean, it's an inspirational movie, and they're recommending it. But it's now a movie script. It's been circulated, and it's now being considered for making into a movie. There's TV and movie people looking into it. Kate Delaney, who I have to acknowledge her. She is my mentor. She's my advocate. She discovered me. And that's that. These words, like, how do you do it? Well, you're discovered. How do you get into it? You need to do this. All foreign to me. They've helped me through. They're supporting. So it's going along fine. They're trying to do, who's most interested in. Of course, it all boils down, I'm sure to money, financing, and the like. But I think it's got a possibility. I would love to see it because it would be a hoot. And again, I think I have something that's different. From a lot of movies, there's going to be no CGI. There's going to be no, and as they say in the book, there's no sex, drugs, or violence. I know as working as a joint civilian contractor in different war theaters, I know all those words. I know when they're used without any just replace the with them, or use them precisely. I been in the soccer world too, where I've been talked to in many languages and been complimented in various ways. But it's pure. It was originally published by Reader's Digest facility, subsidiary of Life Rich. So it's that kind of a book. It's an up kind of beat of a book. If I had to relate it, some of my friends say that it's sort of like a Hallmark kind of movie that you have. So it's that nature. I just want to share. I want to see if I can make someone think and wonder and laugh. I have a goal that when I go out in public and I'm interacting with different people, I try to say something to make someone laugh. I'm not a comedian. I'm a scientist. As I said, I'm a PhD molecular spectroscopist. I've written some very technical papers. I have 15 patents that I've done for various things, but I'm just trying to see if I can make the world a little bit better by a smile or a laughter, and that's my goal. I do that during the day, and I've seen your reactions, and you've made my day multiple times over. So thank you for that.
Wonderful.
Thank you for sharing.
Your readers absolutely will laugh, they'll cry, they'll feel a whole spectrum of emotions when it comes to reading Gunky's Adventures in the Land of Must Believe. It is a heartwarming and imaginative journey crafted by Jim Reuther, from the touching afterlife love letter and wish to whimsical and surprising tales. Jim's stories are a testament to love, life, and creativity. You will love these 26 stories. They are just fantastic. Jim, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
It's been an inspiration to me just to be able to have this. It's something that I never could dream of, but now the dream is fulfilled and we just keep building on the dreams. And I always like to leave, whenever I see someone and talk to someone, interact about the book and the movie, is that Gunky has a saying, and that is, reason, peace, and love will prevail. You must believe. That's how you keep going in this world, and that's what I want to share.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much. I'm inspired and humbled and very appreciative.
Well, I'm humbled and inspired by you and this beautiful work you've done, and the third S of your life, which is storyteller. And love, reason, and what were the three?
Reason, peace, and love.
Reason, peace, that's easy to remember, and love. Got it.
Right.
And right back, I wish the same to you, sir. To the folks at home, I wish you reason, peace, and love as well. And I'd like to thank you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.
Be seeing you.
Visit us at www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com or call us at +1 877 556 0487.